This is Ben Doughty for The Hardest Game. I'm delighted to be joined this morning, I believe it is still morning, by former British and European light middleweight champion Wayne Alexander. How's it going, champ?
Hello, Mr. Doty. I'm good, I can't complain. Life could be a lot worse, getting on with it, mate, Life's
Well,
okay.
I got to tell you, this is long overdue, this audience, because I've known you to say hello to for a good 15 years. And for some reason, I do interviews. I'm in the business of doing interviews. You're a well-remembered, much loved face from British boxing in the 90s. And we've never done an interview for whatever reason. It's not like you've positively avoided it, but neither have you particularly made yourself busy to do one. Is there a reluctance sometimes to do interviews for you and talk about your career in general?
What's that saying? What's that saying? All good things.
Say again?
I say, what's that saying? All good things.
How do you mean? What do you mean? What's saying?
All good things come to those who wait.
I get you. I see what you're saying. You're not asking a question. You're saying, yeah.
Listen. Now, you know what? On a real, you've asked me a couple of times over the past 10 years, and we just haven't linked up. Yeah, I've asked me a couple of times, and we just ain't got around to doing it. I mean, I don't do many of these. Take you through. I don't do many. Probably one every couple of 2-3 months. I don't do a lot, so don't take it personal, mate.
No, well, I'd be interested to know. You have this reputation with the rank and file of British boxing fans as possibly the hardest pound for pound puncher. Certainly in recent British boxing history, the last 30 or 40 years, your reputation it sort of exceeds people who actually achieved perhaps a good deal more than you did in your career. But there's something iconic about. Obviously, there's the knockout of Atakalu, which it'll probably be define you long after you've left this mortal coil. And so people always remember it. Did you always have that power right from day one? Were you always a puncher as soon as you stepped in the gym?
You know what? From an amateur, from the age of 11, I could dig a bit. I was always told, from a schoolboy that I had power. And I was stopping boys from 12 years old when I had my first bout. So I always had a bit of power on me from a schoolboy, Ben.
Do you have any thoughts as to what the secret of that kind of natural power is? Is it just something you came naturally to you, or did you have any thoughts about the way you were punching and your technique, which you'd always attributed it to?
You know what? You just said it. Natural power. I've been asked this question hundreds of times. I never worked on power. That's the honest truth. I never worked on it at all. It was just natural. It was a natural gift. I never worked on it. Even as a full-time pro. Obviously, I shadow box with weights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which a lot of fighters do. But I didn't do weights. I didn't push weights. I didn't bench press. Didn't do nothing like that at all. I didn't do any weights as a fighter, which a lot of guys do now. The modern fighters.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, I never worked on power. Just done a lot of pad work, a lot of bag work. And, my strength was natural.
It's interesting that you talk about shadow boxing with weights, because Michael Asilkalajere was saying to me, he saw a video of me doing a bit of pad work with my youngest son, and he said, forget the pad work, bro, it's BS. He said, get him shadow boxing with weights. He was saying pads, mitt work is just to look good, He was saying, he was talking about them fundamentals, and you were better off shadow boxing with weights, he thought,
Yeah, I was doing that from the amateurs, from a kid. I can still remember now in the Prince of Wales gym in Croydon, boxing with Croydon ABC, doing that, and right throughout my amateur career at the Lynn, and turning pro with Jimmy. It was a thing where it's probably not as common now, is it? I don't think. Everything's changed so much, isn't it? But so I believe a lot of the old school methods are still the best.
Well, there's a lot of focus on pad work these days. There has been for the last few decades, but I do remember guys like Jimmy Tibbs saying that there wasn't a lot of pad work in the 1960s and the 1970s. These days you get the cult of the Instagram trainer, of course, and some people, they do these routines on, and I used to fall for that a little bit, to be honest with you, as you know. But you get these guys who throw. You see Gervonta Davis the other day throwing all his combinations on the paddles, all his shoe shine and all that. I mean, is it all just eye candy? Is it pretty meaningless, do you think?
You know what? I believe also the trainers that want to look good as well. I mean, not digging at anyone personally, but it also looks good for the trainers, isn't it? It's like a showcase now, isn't it? I'm with the old school pads, you know, like with Jimmy Tibbs, you know what I mean? The old school pads, all this flash stuff, you know, it looks good. Don't get me wrong, it does look good. And if you've got natural talent, it does help. But I'm with the old school, you know, the old school way of you know, just punching correctly and not being too flash, you know what I mean? Not making it too complicated.
So you were successful as an amateur. I mean, it culminated in an ABA title win in
Yeah.
1994. But in the juniors, when you were moving through the ranks, at what point did you know that you wanted to be a professional boxer and that's what your life was going to be about?
Do you know what, Ben? I wanted to be a pro boxer the first day I went in the gym.
Yeah.
At the age of 11. At the age of 11. I repeat this. You know that saying when they say you found what you're looking for. I found what I was looking for. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't good at school. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't good academically. You know, I never felt comfortable with doing anything. Do you know what I mean? As a young
Yeah.
boy, I was always getting told off at school. You know what I mean? And like, I had a couple of mates who were boxing. I heard them speaking about it, and I went to the gym. Once again, Croydon ABC. You know, they put me on the map. Prince of Wales pub. I went there, and you know what? The first 10 minutes, the smell of the gym it was on top of a pub, old school pub. You know what I mean? Like the smell,
Prince of Wales. Yeah.
yeah, everything about it just was me. And within like a couple of weeks, I was told I'm going to be a champion. I felt at home in a boxing gym from the age of 11, and that was what I wanted to do from 11 was to be a boxer.
So yeah, so that was your identity when you previously didn't have one. Suddenly you had an identity.
That's the word, yeah.
And
Yeah.
did it give you a bit of cachet at school? You were Wayne Alexander, Wayne the boxer. Did it become quite
Yeah,
a good image to have at school and something people identified you with?
yeah, of course, definitely. You know what I mean? You know, you felt a bit more. You know, what's the word? You felt a bit more in place with everyone else. You know what I mean? You didn't feel left out. You know what I mean? You felt confident, more confidence. You know what I mean? You know, I never use it to my advantage. I never bullied nobody or you know what I mean. Give it a big end with those boxers, but give me respect. I had a lot of respect.
Yeah. Well, how was because a lot of fighters talk about boxing saving them from a
Yeah,
life of street life. You know, the street
yeah,
life, which tends to revolve around gangs and drugs and
yeah.
violence and stuff. How was the scene, for instance, compared to today when you were coming up in South London? Was that how relevant is that kind of backstory that it stopped you from getting involved in things which could have turned serious and taken you down a negative road?
Do you know what? I'm not gonna say if it weren't for boxing, I would have been in, you know, I would have been in crime and I would have been a gangster. But um, I believe a lot of it's to do with your family upbringing. You know what I mean? As well, I had a good
Yeah.
upbringing. I had good parents, both married. You know what I mean? Had a house, had a mortgage. You know what I mean? So you know, I had a good foundation at home. You know, without boxing, I'm not sure what I would do. I'm not going to say I would have been a criminal. I'm not going to say I would have been a gangster. I would have been on the streets, but I don't know what I would have been doing. You know, but I would never, because I started boxing so young. I never really got involved in anything on the streets. You know what I mean? Because I started at 11 years old, I always knew stay away from violence, stay away from crime. You know what I mean? Stay away from all the street stuff. So I was never really on the streets. If you know what I mean, I knew the streets, so I knew people from the streets, but I was never really involved in it because from the age of 11, I knew that was what I wanted to do. So I never got involved. But I knew what was what. I knew the ones and twos, so to speak.
Sometimes there's even this axis whereby your peers who might have one foot in the street at least,
Yeah.
they kind of protect you from it sometimes because they can see because they like you and they admire you and they know you're bound for success. They see some of your success, so sometimes they might be like, "Well, don't put this to Wayne or don't bring Wayne in on this or get him involved in that because he's going to be a champion, maybe."
You know what? You're right. I do remember. You know, certain guys saying, even like after school. You know, after school when you're like 12, 13, you may go to a town centre and loaf. Remember, you know, loaf about, do nothing,
Yeah.
just hang about and just get up to no good. I remember like being told, well, you know what, you're boxing. Don't bother coming out of us. You know what I mean? Just do your training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, yeah, of course. From a young boy, everyone knew me as Dwayne the boxer. So I never really wanted to get involved in any bad stuff. But I knew what was what. But I just stayed clear.
So, as a senior, en
Yeah,
route to your ABA title victory, you stopped Chris Bessie, an amateur
yeah,
boxing legend, a 6-time ABA champion, I believe,
yeah.
Army man, became an
Yeah.
important guy in the Army coaching setup after he retired from the amateurs.
MBE.
MBE as well. You're still waiting for that call yourself, I believe. So, so, but you stopped him, which obviously it's a feather in your cap to beat him, but you stopped him. Talk to me about that particular triumph.
Well, let me just say, I was the last British guy to beat him in '94. He carried on. I think he carried on till about 2000. So I was the last British fighter to beat him. After I beat him, he beat the likes of Carl Froch,
Yeah,
Matthew Fairwell. Um, he beat a few. Like, I think he beat Gary Jones. I was there when he beat Gary Jones. Actually, Michael Jones. He beat a good load of British fighters anyway. After I beat him,
yes.
so that's a good scalp. When I beat him, he was the current welterweight champion as well. When I beat him, he was ABA welterweight champion. He stepped
Yes.
up to light middleweight when I beat him at Gateshead. So that is probably my best amateur victory. Chris went on to win the Commonwealth Games gold medal. I think he won a European bronze. So definitely that's my best amateur victory.
Is it available, the footage? I haven't looked for it, but is it there
Yeah,
on
it's
YouTube?
on YouTube.
Yeah,
YouTube, yeah, it's on YouTube, mate. I got it about 3-4 years ago. I
yeah.
was hunting for it. I was hunting for it, and I couldn't get it. And I got it about 4 years ago. It only shows the second round, which I stopped him in. But yeah, this is it's a great part of my boxing history.
And in the final, you beat Steve Bendel to claim
Yeah,
the light middleweight ABA title. I mean, it's such an achievement to win a senior ABAs. It is written in stone. It makes you part of history. And I don't know, do you ever go on Google and read the list of light middleweight champions and look down the line of all the legends who share that honour with you?
in the past I have. I know the great Errol Christie. He
Yeah,
won it. He won it at light middleweight.
yeah.
So yeah, in the past I have. It's a great title to win. And yeah, it was a great honour to win the ABA title. I remember
Well,
watching it as a schoolboy, watching the George Wimpy ABAs. Where they were held at the Albert Hall and Wembley Arena.
it had such prestige then, didn't it? It
Yeah,
would be 9 o'clock prime time on BBC One, as I recall. I think it was BBC One. It was either that or BBC Two. But Harry Carpenter was commentating, and it really had an importance and a prestige that the ABA senior title simply doesn't have today. I think it's fair to say,
do you know
which
what?
is a shame.
The year I won it was the last time it was on. It was
Terrestrial TV.
like commentated by Harry Carpenter. That was the last
Yeah,
year in 1994, and it was the first year. It was the first year when Scotland and Wales didn't go in it.
yeah.
That was the first year in '94. After that, it was just all England. So that took a little bit of a shine off it really. But it was still a great honor. I still boxed 5 times to win it. I beat 2 ABA champions to win it. But yeah, Harry Carpenter was the last. Well, 1994 was the last time he commentated on the ABA finals.
In that era, you had that kind of mixture of bouts with head guards, and sometimes there were fights that took place without head guards, or even you had a situation when one boxer might wear a head guard and another one might opt
Yeah.
not to. Where do you stand on head guards? I mean, did you not mind boxing in them? Did you dislike them as many fighters do? Or what was your take on a head guard during contests?
Funny enough, I remember when I won the junior ABAs in 1990. In that season, you could have a choice of wearing it or not wearing it.
Yeah,
And my trainer, the late Fred Puddock, said to me, try it out, have see how it feels. So I won the London ABAs and the national ABAs wearing a head guard. Remember it was like the foam ones. I think they were was it MK before top 10.
I was going to say top 10 was what I was about to
Yeah,
say, but maybe
before the top 10. I can't remember what they were called.
there was Green Hill was another one, but
No, it wasn't Green Hill. It wasn't Green Hill. But anyway, I wore them in the 1990 ABA finals, and I didn't mind them actually. I found them. fairly comfortable. I didn't really mind them, and yeah, like you said, every year they changed it, didn't they? They made one year they made it you got to wear them, then they made it you haven't got to wear them. So
Yeah,
um,
it's. Do you know it's funny because they were using him even in Sugar Ray Leonard's era. Sometimes, if you watch
yeah,
him, he boxes Bruce Curry, and I'm pretty sure they're wearing head guards. The first time I saw him really was the 1984 Olympics. You know, the year that Mark Breland and Pernell Whitaker and Ital won
yeah,
gold medals, and they were wearing head guards. I mean, they've recently got rid of them in senior amateur competition in the last several years. I think the juniors probably still wear them. At least half the time. So I never did. As a junior, I never wore them. I come back and had a few bouts in the early 2000s when they were mandatory, so I had to wear them. But personally, I've always thought they were for the gym, and I think contests should be
yeah.
without really.
As a schoolboy, I never wore them. As a schoolboy,
No.
from 11 to about 14, 15, I never wore them. There wasn't compulsory. It was only when I become a junior, 15, 16, that they became compulsory. So as a schoolboy, no, I never wore them at all. But I didn't really mind them. I didn't really mind them.
I think the big misconception amongst the layperson, Wayne, is the idea that you're somehow protected and these punches are not going to hurt anymore. I can honestly say, I could use you as an example, as a parable. I could say, okay, so you think if Wayne Alexander hits you on the chin, you're going to be okay as long as you're wearing this thing around your head. Is that what you believe? You know. So I think I didn't like it because I think the perception of people was that it was
Yeah,
somehow a bit less warrior-like, to be honest with you. It was a little bit softer and a bit more protected and a bit more mollycoddled. When it's not like that. And we're not talking about my infinitesimal career, but the only time I ever got cut was with a head guard on, in 2003, because it moved, I guess. So,
yeah. They
so
said
I
it could.
don't know.
Yeah, go on, Karen. Sorry.
No, go on. No, that was it. You were about to come in. Go ahead.
They were saying that it could pinch your skin, couldn't they? They were saying the corners of the
Yeah.
head guard would pinch some people's skins and cut them, which I can understand, but I never had that problem. There was controversy with like some medical people said it was safer to wear them, and some were saying it wasn't. Some were saying that having a head guard can cause you more damage when you get a blow. It'll hold the blow more. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Some doctors were saying that it's better not to wear a head guard than to wear them.
Do you know what? And then when we talk about that, we get dangerously close to that recently age-old debate with Michael Sukalajare when he claims that bigger gloves are more concussive and more dangerous and ultimately carry more force and heavy. You can deliver a heavier punch
What do you
because the
think?
glove is heavier. But
What do
I
you think
think we've
about it?
done that one to death.
What do you think about that?
All I can say, and as I say, we have done this argument to death, and we did when it was Sugar, Silk and Stretch, this podcast, we did it to death. But all I will say is, regardless of what Michael Sukalajare thinks, the industry thinks that smaller gloves are for damage and knockouts, and bigger gloves are for relative protection. They're still going to spar in 16 and even 20-ounce gloves sometimes, and they're still going to box contests in 8-ounce or 10-ounce gloves, aren't they? Regardless of what he thinks, I don't see that changing. So clearly, the perception. Most people seem to believe that that you listen. If I was, suppose I was going to spar you in an exhibition,
Yeah.
and then you're never going to lose your power. You're still going to have that. Suppose someone said to me, "Will you move about with Wayne Alexander?" And they said, "Well, do you want him to wear 8-ounce gloves, Ben, or do you want him to wear 16s or 18s?" I'm going to say the bigger gloves, aren't I? I'm going to say that,
Exactly.
and you understand why I'm going to say that. What would suppose you didn't like somebody and you were looking to knock them out in an exhibition? Would you ask for the bigger gloves or the smaller gloves?
Smaller gloves. Common sense, isn't it?
So that's it. So either that's a belief system, Wayne, that we've been conditioned to believe, or we're correct. And all I know is that I do find the whole argument almost tedious at this point because Silk won't let it go. But certainly the industry is not on his side. He says the science is on his side and the physics is on his side. You know what? Maybe it is, but I think a really, really high-end laboratory test would have to be done to figure that out.
The 8-ounce gloves, they do damage. I remember when I fought Paul Samuels for the British title.
Yes.
And, we wore 8-ounce raised gloves, and it felt like I was wearing pad gloves.
Yeah.
In the senior amateurs, I think it was 10-ounce gloves in the seniors.
Yeah, that's right.
When I turned pro, it was 8. But then
Which it wouldn't be today, incidentally, Wayne. Like middleweight these days is the cut-off point for them 10 ounces. But you were lucky; you got to wear the smaller gloves.
No. And I remember them 8-ounce gloves felt like pad gloves. You know, I said to Jimmy Tibbs, yeah, man, look, these gloves are nice, man. I like these gloves. And Jimmy goes, yeah, remember Paul's wearing them as well, you know.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah, but that's the other thing. That's the funny thing. You mentioned that when you get small gloves on and the gloves feel kind of hard and tight, and you're like thinking, "What am I going to do with these?" And then you suddenly do think, "Well, he's going to hit me with them too."
yeah,
So I
exactly.
guess it's a double-edged sword.
And like in well, we'll probably talk about it later on, but in 3 rounds with them 8-ounce gloves, he cut me under my eye, never been cut before, and he bust my eardrum in 3 rounds with them gloves, brutal with them gloves.
So I mean that was your first major title win as a professional against Paul Samuels for the vacant British light middleweight title. How soon after the ABA title win did you turn pro? Was that your last amateur fight, or did you have a couple more?
No, I won the ABAs in '94, and I didn't get picked for the Commonwealth Games, which really pissed me off. I had ideas of trying to go for the Olympics, because that year in '94 was when they had the lottery funding.
Yeah.
In '94, so
you maybe would have targeted Atlanta.
Yeah, that's it. Atlanta. I thought, let me try Atlanta. We got lottery funding. I might get a little wage to stay amateur. And I entered the ABAs in '95, and I got beat in the London finals by Richard Williams.
Yeah.
He beat me in London finals, which I thought I won. To this day, I thought I won it. But anyway, he beat me in London finals, and then I got picked for the Multi Nations in Liverpool.
Yeah.
I got beat in my first fight by a Canadian. I wasn't in shape, and then I was supposed to box in the World Championships. I was picked for the World Championships in '95 in Berlin. Me, Danny Williams, and who else? The lightweight, Burke. Stephen Burke. Anyway, we was picked for that, and I broke my hand in training. I broke my hand sparring, so I couldn't enter that. So I thought I'd turn pro. The Olympics was an option which I decided I'd leave alone. I wasn't number one no more in the country. Bessie came number one because Bessie beat Williams in the semi-finals.
Yeah.
Went on to win the ABA, so he became number one again. So I knew that I wasn't going to be the first choice for the major tournament. So I turned pro.
It's that amateur network. A lot of people complain about the ABA being very political. The setup back then. I know the organisations have changed somewhat in their structure these days, but people would often complain about the old boys Blazer network and whether your face fit with them or not. And it was a lot of favouritism, like everything else in life, right? Did you experience that?
Do you know what? I must admit, not really. No, I must admit, no. When I was number one in the country, I was the first choice at light middleweight for all the tournaments, all the motivations. So I can't say that there was favouritism.
You can't complain.
No.
I know Nigel Benn was bitterly disappointed when he didn't get selected for the Commonwealth Games, despite the fact he'd beaten Rod Douglas. And I believe there was something political about that, or personal, whatever it was. I think it's actually, I know what it apparently pertains to, and I don't actually think it's a discussion point for.
I've heard. I think I know what you're talking about.
You think you know what I'm talking about, and I don't think it's appropriate for. I don't think it's appropriate for me to expand. I'm sure you agree, but I know that it established an undying enmity from Nigel Benn towards the ABA. He said he would never ever patronise or help with anything that was related to them ever again, because he was overlooked for those Commonwealth Games on the grounds that he was overlooked.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I mean, Rod was a blue-eyed boy, wasn't he? Rod Douglas was like an England favourite, wasn't he? Rod Douglas.
Yeah. I mean, Rod Douglas, he went to those '84 Olympics in Los Angeles, and he boxed Sean O'Sullivan, who was the really hot,
Canadian,
very successful amateur Canadian kid who lost in the final to Frank Tate, who boxed a very smart fight, as I recall. Went on his bike, and because he was a big puncher, Sean O'Sullivan, he was knocking everybody out, and he was considered the best light middleweight in the world in '84. But Frank Tate did a number on him just by getting on his bike. That's what I remember from the watching it as a 14-year-old. And you probably remember he turned pro with Sugar Ray Leonard, Sean O'Sullivan. and was very marketable. And yeah, he was very marketable and doing well until Simon Brown wrecked him. You know that matchmaking thing where they make a mistake, they think there's an old name here, Simon Brown. This will be a good springboard for Sean, and obviously it didn't work out that way because Simon Brown had not read the script. But that was his kind of that pretty much did for Sean O'Sullivan, really. And I believe Sean O'Sullivan's not in a good way today, you know, in terms of cerebral health.
That's true, yeah. Oh, sad to hear. Sad to hear.
It is, but you know, it does. We won't. I don't want to segue too much talking about fighters who carry neurological damage because I want to stick on the track with your career. You know, when you turned pro, I know you worked with Jimmy Tibbs, but was he your first trainer, or did you initially were you coached by someone else when you started?
No, I turned pro with Jimmy Tibbs.
Yeah,
me and Danny Williams turned pro together. We signed the papers with Frank Moran. Still remember it now. We signed the papers in August '95. Me and Danny Williams went up to Frank Moran's office and struck out a deal. And we both were trained by Jimmy Tibbs. I only had 2 trainers in my pro career, but yeah, Jimmy Tibbs was my first trainer. Yeah,
that's good that you only had 2 trainers as well, because some guys, you know the old cliche saying he's had more trainers than JD Sports. They say of certain fighters who keep trainer hopping, and I think it does. It's not the most encouraging indicator when a guy's been around all these different coaches. I get it. Sometimes they need to freshen things up. They need a change. But I do like the idea of people who stay with the same trainer, or in your case, pretty much the same trainer for an entire career, because I think it shows more accountability and the belief in that kind of chemistry and process. You know, and obviously Jimmy is a great coach. I mean, I ask people from their personal point of view, what it is that makes him so successful. What is your take on the value of Jimmy Tibbs as a coach, more than the average coach, perhaps?
I'd say experience. You know, that's a key factor. Jimmy's been around the game since he was a boy. You can't buy experience. You know, you got a lot of guys now who they call PT trainers, isn't they? You know, I mean, key feet trainers. You know, who've been in the game for a short minute and think they can train the world. But Jimmy's been there, served the apprenticeship. You know, was a good amateur as a kid. You know, a prospect as a pro. And you know, he was around all the elite managers and trainers when he yeah. So his experience, it's been, you know, he's when I turned pro with him, I knew he's passed. You know, he trained Barry McGuigan, Bruno, Chris Pyatt, the list goes on. You know what I mean? He trained all the Lloyd Hannigan, loads of British and European champions. So
Magri, Bruno,
all of them all. The experience of just being around all the top champions, you know, you can't buy that.
Do you know, I actually found footage, I don't know if you noticed it, I posted it last night. I found footage of, it's only 26 seconds or something, of Jimmy, one of his pro fights against a guy called Hugh Lynch. It's only a little snapshot, but it's priceless. You see him, he's more like fainting, he throws a couple of jabs, he's 19 years old. Never seen that before until last night, mate.
You know what, Jimmy showed me that when I turned pro with him. Jimmy showed me that. I see that about like 20 years ago. Jimmy showed me it. Yeah, he's
always been very evasive when I've asked him about any footage of him. I believe that the person who put it up last night, he has the whole fight, but he's been asked not to put it out. I don't know if that's by Jimmy or what.
Oh, is that true? Funny, no, Jimmy showed me just that clip as well.
Yeah,
Jimmy showed clip. Yeah, so I don't know why he showed me the whole fight, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think Jimmy is a naturally quite. If they call some trainers glory hunters, right? Jimmy is the opposite of that. He's one of those guys who doesn't really like an overt amount of attention. I mean, he likes a tribute and some heartfelt praise like the next man, but he's not. But he's not into the attention of it all. And I think the idea of putting his fights out there, because I'd say, why don't you do it, Jim? Loads of people would love to see, you know, a Jimmy Tibbs fight in its entirety, but he's not really into that. He doesn't court attention for himself, you know.
Jimmy's old school, isn't he? Like I said, you know, before the internet, before, you know, social media, Jimmy's an old school guy, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's not into the glitz and glamour, is he? You know?
It's funny, you know, because the social media phenomenon, which has changed a lot of our lives, it certainly changed my life. I remember it must be a good 10 years ago, at least, when it could even have been, I think it was 2012. So we're talking about getting on for 13 years ago. First time I met you was when you could, because I was getting a bit of platform on Facebook mainly from my boxing kind of discussions and interviews and stuff. You came up to me at the York Hall when I was leaving one night and said, "Oh, bruv, how come you never say hello?" And I wasn't sure who you were because I was like, "What? Who are you?" You said, "I'm Wayne Alexander," and I was like, "Oh, for God, for God's sake, Wayne, a well, yeah, how's it going?" And we went for a pint of Guinness, I believe, at the
Oh,
Dundee.
did we?
We did. I had a young lady in tow that I'd taken on, I guess, a kind of a date for the night, and I said, "Let's go have a drink," and we did that. But to me, that is the craziness of social media. I mean, especially back then, that I thought that somebody who achieved what you did approaches me, and that's why I don't say hello. That's got to be backwards. It's just got to
Listen,
be.
you've been big on the scene from day one, haven't you? You've been like
Yeah, I mean, it
a
was
major
Spencer
figure on
Fearon. Well, it was Spencer Fearon who encouraged me to do that, and I saw
it.
him doing it. I know. As I mentioned his name, I suddenly realised that there's never been a huge, great rapport between the two of you in recent years. I'm aware of that, but you did box him as an amateur briefly, and it was a rather short-lived affair. I know that one is on YouTube. You met. Can you remind me what was it the divs or the
Southeast Divs that was the year I got beat by Richard. I boxed
Richard
Spencer with
Williams? Yeah, yeah,
Southeast Divs. Yeah,
yeah. But you
95.
stopped. But you stopped Spencer. Was that your first bout in the tournament?
Yeah, Southeast Divs final. Yeah,
And people, I suppose, must once you established your reputation as a massive puncher, people didn't want to fight you some of the time. I suppose. I mean, nobody wants to fight somebody like that. Gary Logan once said to me, "Ben, you can say what you want," and he was on about all the Mayweather pad work as well. And
yeah.
he said, hand speed and coordination and whatever. He said, but he said, I'm telling you now, the only thing they really respect in the pro game is power. He said that's the only thing they really respect and fear. So people in the amateurs, people must have not relished getting drawn against you, and some people must have pulled out sometimes rather than bother.
I can name a few guys that decided to go up a weight or
Yeah,
down a weight when it came to the divs. I won't mention their names, but I do know a
yeah.
few guys. Yeah, chose to avoid me.
I'd have gone up 3 just to be on the safe side. But okay, so how was because a lot of people they turn professional. I acknowledge the fact that your era was different than the one we're in today. But
Yeah.
a lot of people turn professional, amateurs who enjoyed success and enjoyed their boxing, and they get rather disillusioned, and their kind of illusions they had about professional boxing get stripped away, usually quite quickly, and they can become rather disappointed and rather cynical when they realise it really is a very cutthroat business, and the ticket selling is of mandatory importance, and they can't just go and box and travel and go on squads like they can in the amateurs. But how? What was the culture shock factor like for you turning pro, having to sell tickets, realizing that politics was much more relevant suddenly than it was in the amateur game? Did you become disillusioned about certain aspects of the business?
I won't say disillusion, but it showed me early on that not always the best fighters or the best prospects
Get on.
make it. Like you said, you got to sell tickets. You got to sell tickets, put bums on seats. That's what the promoters want, don't they? So I realized that, but I was just so hungry to be a champion. I was prepared. I didn't sell loads, but I sold a few. I sold a fair bit, but I was prepared to suffer that, and just as long as I keep winning, that's the main thing. As long as you keep winning, that's the main thing. But like I said, it's the business, isn't it? It's the business. It's not all about the best guys making it. Sometimes the best guys don't make it, or the best prospects.
Yeah, and also there was certainly a perception in your era amongst black boxers that you tended to struggle to sell a ticket as well as some of your popular white counterparts.
Even now,
Chris
really.
Oko said it to me. Chris Oko has told me that. Spencer Fearon told me that. I'm sure there are other, black boxer friends of my acquaintance who say it is harder in our culture often to sell a ticket compared to them pub boys from Essex, etc. Is that true? Do you feel?
I have to agree that I have to agree. When I was fighting, if I sold 200 tickets, I reckon 50 would be black guys. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, which is not too bad. That's not a bad ratio. But
take it as you want. I mean, are they tight? You tell me. What do you reckon it is? What do you reckon, man? What do you reckon? Why do you reckon that is?
Chris Oko even said. So I'm distancing myself from this as
Yeah.
a white person, commenting. I obviously have to check myself and make sure protect myself. But it was Chris Oko, it was obviously a black guy, said. He said, I don't like to say it, he said, but when I was boxing, it was often my white friends who were like, yeah, we'll have 10, Chris. So here's the money now. And he said, and it was more often my black friends who we might try to jib in or say, like, is there a guest list, bruv? And all this kind of thing.
Bring me in, bring me in.
Yeah.
Them three words, bring me in, bring me in.
Yeah, bring me in. So. Or even Junior Saeed told me a few years ago, he said with him, it was like, just waiting to pop this move, fam, and then it'll be sweet,
Oh boy, you know what? I don't think he's changed really. But what can we say? I don't think he's changed much. To tell you the truth, is it really? If you look at the crowd, the boxing crowds now. I mean, it's probably 80%, 90% white, isn't it?
Certainly, they said with the re-rise, of Matchroom,
Yeah.
the reprise of Matchroom under Eddie Hearn started back in around about 2010, 2011, when Eddie spearheaded the second wave of Matchroom boxing. There was a very kind of what people call a casual crowd, like you say, very Caucasian crowd, Sweet Caroline, few lines in the toilets. That was the audience which they had been kind of identified, as part of the new wave of British boxing. I think now we're in another transitional phase in boxing history, obviously, because you've got the Riyadh season thing, you've got Turki Al Sheikh calling all the shots, and it really is. If you look at the fights he's putting together and the cards he's putting together, I think we are in an interesting, exciting time in boxing history. I don't quite know where it's going to lead, Wayne, and I don't know. Some people have raised the issue saying it's not really helping at the grassroots level. We're getting it all at the top at the minute, all that investment. And some people, of course, have said the women don't seem to be taken care of in this. I mean, Michaela Mayer said she didn't even get an invite to the Ring Awards last Saturday. And culturally, I don't suppose he is a huge fan of women's boxing. Do you know what I mean?
That is true. You know what? You made a point there. I mean, culturally, the women are not on the same. What's the word? I don't want to sound too controversial, but they're not
on the same standing. Yeah,
social
standing.
You said it. So that could be the reason. You're definitely right. But like I said, there's not many top level women, are there? But you're right. The few that are, they haven't been offered, have they? Never been asked. That is true.
I mean, they had Sky Nicholson. And Raven Chapman did box on the Fury Usyk undercard, right? I believe. Yeah. Was it? Oh no, was it the one before that? I think did they box on the Bivol? I think they boxed on the Bivol Beterbiev first card. Raven Chapman and Sky Nicholson. They boxed on the show. So there has been a female title fight on a Riyadh season show in Saudi Arabia, but I believe that is the only one so far. To the best of my knowledge.
You made a point. There are a good 3 or 4 women that deserve to be on, on the Riyadh season cards. Definitely, I agree with that. Yeah.
Did you see any evidence of females entering the game when you were active? Was there any other kind of that culture starting to rise?
You know what? No, I must admit, when I was fighting in the 90s, there was tell a lie. The first. What's her fight in Streatham? She had a pro debut in Streatham. What's her name again? Couch.
Yeah, Jane Couch. Yeah, of course.
She was the trailblazer. Yeah, Jane Couch came along. Was it about 2000?
She was around in the 90s. She was around 97, I believe, Wayne.
That's the year. So apart from her, there was nobody else. Remember, she campaigned for years, literally, to get a pro license. Remember.
You cannot underestimate the debt that female boxing owes to Jane Couch. She's an absolute trailblazer.
Yeah. She was the only lady that I know that was really, really aspiring for the women. And I remember going to her pro debut. It was a Streatham, wasn't it? Wasn't it Caesars? Was it Streatham?
It probably was at Caesars, Streatham, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to her pro debut. Yeah, about 99. So, but apart from her, there was no other women really involved.
No, and Jane always says to this day, the great irony was that one of the most bitter opponents of her particular case and female boxing in general was Frank Maloney. Now, obviously, there's an irony there for people to see, because when Frank transitioned and became Kelly, one of her platforms about the relaunch of the career was based on female boxing and investing in that and bringing girls along. And Jane obviously doesn't want to hear it. It's like, that's hypocrisy because you were very scathing and unhelpful when it came to my career, But I think it's a shame in a way. I mean, Jane got inducted into the Hall of Fame last year.
Yeah.
And I think it is deserved because there's an American woman who got inducted as well called Jackie Tonawanda, and apparently, according to people I trust in the game, like Randy Gordon from the Ring magazine back in the day, he said the woman was a total fraud. She was like an early social media clout chaser before there was social media. She would make up fights. She would phone up the editors of Ring magazine, telling them to cover her latest win, but she couldn't substantiate the details of it. And she called herself the female Ali.
What's her
And
name?
it sounds like she's managed to kind of basically blag her way into the Hall of Fame. She's passed away now, I believe. And Iceman John Scully still gets real up in arms about it and says, we've got to get this woman out of the Hall of Fame. But Jane, belongs in there, I think, deserves to be in there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like you said, she's a trailblazer, which she campaigned for years and years, literally, to get women involved in the game, and she achieved what she started.
Do you watch the girls these days? And when you tune into fights, you watch them the same way you...
I watch a few. Michaela Mayer, yeah, she's very good.
Yeah.
She's very, I thought she beat
Natasha Jonas. Yeah, I did.
I thought she beat Jonas. You know what I mean? I thought she won it by a round or two.
I think so. I mean, it's I think she was very unlucky, but boxing, that's one thing which is completely across the board, regardless of gender or ethnicity or anything else. Boxing, not only is it, I don't want to say corrupt, but it's political, and just because you get a decision doesn't necessarily mean you deserve the decision, or vice versa. But I also think, Wayne, that the scoring system is very open for a very wide interpretation, and unless people sit down, when people talk about decisions when they're watching at home or whatever, unless you sit there scoring it with a pen and paper, or in whatever digital fashion you want to score it on a 10-point must system, then sometimes your impression can be misleading. You have to score it to really have a verdict that you can stand by. And I know Barry Jones as well says you have to do it live too. You can't do it after the event when you already know the result. But did you ever get any decisions which you felt were unfair to you, amateur or pro?
As an amateur, Richard Williams, London
final. Sorry, you've already detailed it. To this day, you think you won that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very close fight. It could have been a draw. If draws were around, it would have been a draw. The first round, I thought I won, by 1 point. Yeah, the first round. Yeah. The second round, I give him a standing count. Yeah, and I won the round. So that's two. That's in my eyes, that's a 3-point lead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the third round, I was knackered. I was fucked. I was gone. He put me down twice.
Okay.
Yeah, so he put me down twice. Yeah, so I suppose that's a 3-point round. So a draw, but would have been fair. But you can't get draws in amateur in Kenya. So
you can't. Certainly not in England.
So a draw would have been fair, but I thought I nicked it. But apart from that, really, I think maybe as a schoolboy, maybe I had 1 or 2 as a schoolboy, which I thought I might have nicked. 3 1.5 minute rounds. You know what I mean? Like very, very short distances, isn't they? Very, 1.5 minute rounds, very, very short fights. As a pro, I never got beat on points. I got stopped, I lost 3 fights by stoppage.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, were you the Harry Simon world title opportunity for the WBO middleweight title? Do you think it came a little bit too soon? Was it one of those things that you couldn't turn it down, but it wasn't necessarily the ideal time for you to step up quite to that level?
Yeah, of course it came. It came too soon, definitely.
Yeah.
I was training for a British title defence.
Yeah.
And I was offered the fight. Good money I couldn't turn down, really. But yeah, it was offered. It was too soon, but the money was very good. And I was told I'll still be British champion. If I win it,
nothing to lose.
Yeah, nothing to lose. And after that fight, I got elevated in the European rankings.
Yeah,
and I was number one. I got to number 1 challenger the following 6 months. So I didn't really lose nothing in that fight. Put up a great performance.
Must have learned from it.
Yeah, of course. he showed me what world class fighting is all about. Harry did. He showed me what it's about. You know what I mean? That you can't knock everybody out. You know. I speak to him now, Harry. Me and you still speak now. You know, he should have been in the mix with De La Hoya, Vargas, Trinidad.
And then suddenly he had a car accident.
I think he had two. You know, I'm sure he had two, but yeah, he had one horrific car accident which basically ruined his career.
Yes.
But he's definitely the best fighter I've fought, amateur and pro. He had it all. You know, speed, power, good chin. You know, he showed me what real world class fighting is all about. Harry did.
Yeah, and not too long after that, you won the European light middleweight title, beating a guy called Paolo Pizzamiglio at the York Hall.
Yeah. He actually fought for it about 3 months before that against Mamadou Thiam.
Yeah.
He fought Thiam, and it was a very controversial stoppage. He got stopped in about 9 rounds, and it was very controversial. I think he was winning the fight, and he asked for a return, and Mamadou gave up the title. He gave it up, and the title was vacant, and I was next down on the list to fight for it. So it was on the bill of
Michael Sprott and
Tapia.
Johnny Tapia boxed that night as well.
One of my finest days. Johnny Tapia was on my undercard. You know what I mean? But really,
yeah.
He was the main event. He was the main event. He was an honor. It's honor. Being on the same bill as him. You know.
You know, it's funny. Some of the legends that have boxed at the York Hall over the years, Tapia will be one of them. Edwin Rosario boxed at the York Hall against Frankie Randall back in I think 1986 it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Buster, the one that always trips me out, Wayne, is Buster Drayton versus James Kinchin on a Sunday afternoon at York Hall. That's madness, you know. And you had Mark Hader on the bill, you had Gary Stretch on the bill, you had Cornelius Bozer Edwards on that bill. Crazy days, really.
What year was that?
That was 1985. It was the day, you know what? It was the day before Hagler Hearns.
Wow.
April 14th, 1985. And Mickey Duff put on Drayton versus Kinchin in a world middleweight eliminator. I see a Bozer, Gary Stretch. I think John Mugabe was on the bill. Mark Haler. I mean, can you imagine that?
I remember Kinchin. Did Kinchin fight? Didn't he fight Hearns?
He fought Tommy Hearns. Yeah, Tommy won the vacant. It was the WBO like middleweight title versus Kinchin. And a lot of people criticised Tommy because they criticised the referee as well, Mills Lane, because Tommy was out on his feet, but he hung on for dear life. One thing he'd learned at this point, when he's a bit more mature, was to hold, and he hugged Kinchin for dear life to survive in that fight, and he got a decision. But
James the Heat Kinchin.
James the Heat Kinchin, was Marvin Hagler's #1 contender for aeons, it felt like, and he never got the shot. Hagler wasn't ducking him. Hagler wasn't scared of him, of course. Hagler just had bigger, more lucrative fish to fry, or even smaller fish to fry, but smaller fish that came with more money. If you know what I mean in terms of weight divisions. Marvin. Some people knock Marvin on that basis, don't they? If they're looking to try and minimise Hagler's greatness, which I think is a very silly occupation. But if someone's trying to do that, they sometimes say, well, his most defining victories were against naturally smaller men. But he also beat a who's who of middleweights before he even won the title. You know what I mean?
Hagler had a great career. Listen, he's one of my best fighters ever. He is proper old school. Like you say, I think he had was it about 30 fights before he fought for the world title?
50. Try 50.
Was it 50?
Yes, it was his 50th fight against Antifermo when he got the shot, and he had a draw on that particular occasion. That was November the 30th, 1979, on the same bill as Leonard versus Benitez.
There'll never be another Hagler. Just his career. There'll never be a fighter that has a career like Hagler. He's the last of the old school winning. Their fights against Benny Briscoe and I mean, like, he was something special, isn't it? I mean,
he was. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a fighter more versatile.
Yeah. He's in my eyes. He's got to be top 5, top 4 middleweights ever.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you say he was #1, I wouldn't have an argument with it. I think when you talk about the greatest middleweights of all time, I would say you've got a choice between Monzon, Hagler. I think Hopkins deserves to be included in the debate. It's a discussion. Sugar Ray Robinson, of course, who you could say Sugar Ray Robinson's form at middleweight was patchy, and that he only made
Yeah.
3 defences, and he lost it a bunch of times, and then he regained it. But I think if you look at the strength of opposition Robinson beat at middleweight, and the guys he beat at middleweight even before he became the champion, I think he did. He certainly, if someone said Robinson was the greatest middleweight, I wouldn't have too much of an argument. Although I prefer Hagler and Monzon because they were more stable and more dominant. But those who say Robinson was the greatest fighter at any weight of all time, I don't have an argument with that either. I don't know about you.
Yeah, he's my favourite of all time. Yeah, best middleweight, best middleweight of all time. But like you said, Monzon and Hagler they fought more solid champions, didn't they? They was around longer at the weight.
They were, exactly, and I think that the consistency is a part of that equation.
Yeah.
Getting back to you, I mean, it was 2004, I believe it was September, I believe, when you knocked out Takalu. That is the fight that you will be remembered for, whether you like it or not. Do you regard it as your defining moment in the ring or not?
It is. It has to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whenever my name's mentioned, that's the fight they mention. That is my defining moment, and I can't really say I'm not happy about that. The fight.
Sweetest punch you ever threw?
That I landed, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. See, we can use that one as a little clip. I like the way you said that little pause. Yes, the one that ever landed. And immediately, a couple of seconds prior to you landing that money shot, it looked like he hurt you with a body shot, dug you downstairs, slowed you a little bit. Looked like you felt the impact of that. And then Ian Darke was almost setting the scene that Alexander looks like he might have a little bit of trouble here. Then boom.
Listen, mate, I was hurt bad.
Really? Yeah.
Ooh. I'm not gonna lie. That body shot took all the wind out of me.
Yeah.
I keep saying one more shot to that flying whip. I would have been out. I would have been down, definitely down. I was out on my feet, but I see him coming in. I see him coming in to finish the job. And going back to Jimmy Tibbs. Jimmy Tibbs always showed me the roll. The roll, the hook of the roll. The hook of the roll. I still watched Nigel Benn do it. Me and Jimmy practiced it for years and years on the pads. At the time, I was trained by John Breen, but I still practiced that shot. Yeah. The hook of the roll, and I see Takalu coming in to finish me off, and I threw the shot, and he landed perfectly. I've heard since it was a lucky shot. You hear that saying, lucky punch, lucky punch.
That's nonsense.
It was not a lucky punch because I knew what I was doing.
Of course, there is no lucky punch.
A lucky punch is when you just swing and hope for the best. And
the closest I'm seeing to that is Audley Harris and Michael Sprott rematch. That's the only thing I could say that fits that kind of remit of a lucky punch.
I mean, I think he was kind of like half looking at what he was doing. I know what you're saying, but he was still looking at what he was doing, if you know what I mean. But
yeah, there's no luck involved. It's a fighter trains all his life to throw these punches.
Yeah.
Sometimes they connect,
But listen, and I've never landed a shot that perfect before or afterwards. He, at the right time it landed because I was out on my feet. I was out on my feet and it landed at the right time, Ben. When I needed it the most, because I couldn't let him beat my Takalu. I couldn't let him beat me.
I believe there was personal feelings involved. It was Takalu.
Listen, me and Takalu turned pro about a year after me with Jimmy Tibbs. Whenever we sparred, it was like a world title fight for Takalu because I was always rated above him. I was like AB, like middleweight champ. He was like middleweight, but he's always looking up to me, wasn't he? He was always looking up to me. I understand. I'm a little bit older than him. And whenever we sparred, it was like a world title fight. It was like a fight for a world title fight, whenever we sparred.
Yeah.
And the story is I came in the gym one day and Jimmy said to me, spar with Takalu. I didn't really want to spar. And I didn't want to spar with Jimmy, with Takalu, and I said, I don't feel like sparring. I don't really feel like sparring. Can you hear that banging? Is that banging?
Nah.
Oh, no. He said to me, yeah, spar tackle you. I said to him, I don't really want to spar, Jim. I don't really want to spar. But then I got in the ring with him. We got in the ring, and next minute, boom, I'm on the floor. He hit me in the fucking shot. I'm on the floor, yeah. And then Jimmy's going, get up, yeah. I got up and we carried on sparring. And after that, I was gutted. I was walking around the gym. I was gutted that he put me down. Then Takaloo got beat in his next fight. He got beat by is it Khalid?
Yeah.
Khalid beat him in his next fight, and Takaloo started saying, he lost that fight because Jimmy's always training me.
Yeah.
You know,
Favoritism.
there's favoritism, and he's always training me. And I looked at Wayne in the gym, and he was that cold, and I'll do it again, blah blah blah, and he left. And after that, he progressed a bit, but kept calling my name, man. He knocked me out. I had one time I was carried out on a stretcher.
Yeah.
I was carried out on a stretcher once as well. Then Takaloo was doing well, kept doing well, and the fight eventually happened, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And I got the impression, I've spoken to you about it in recent years, and you still don't seem to. It's like you never really mended that fence with him. You never really made up. And
do you know what? Takaloo's not really a big fan of the game like you are. He's not a big fan of the game like you are, so I don't really see him much around the sport. He lives in Margate, doesn't he? He lives in Margate, fair bit away. So I've seen Takaloo face to face probably 4 times in like over 20 years. I don't see him. Yeah. I don't even see him to talk to him.
So you wouldn't necessarily have it.
Can you have banging? Because there's somebody upstairs is doing a bit of building work. So
you're fine. It's not coming across on the video.
Oh, that's good. Oh, fair enough.
The only thing that does bother me is this half screen thing, which has happened this week. And so what I'm going to do for anyone who's watching live, which I think there's only like one person on right now.
One person, bloody hell. Who's that one person? Hello, whoever you are.
Yeah. Because I didn't advertise this. I just said, let's just go live. It's like a recording, really. But I'm going to, if I need to edit this, I will do, because something's strange on that side. But regardless of that, Wayne, it's been brilliant to get this chance to speak to you finally in this kind of. I know we speak all the time, as and when on on Facebook inbox, whatever. But you are a good interview and a very urbane character. You're not full of ego. You're proud of your achievements, clearly, but you're very sort of.
Cool.
I think you come over well, mate. You sort of in a good place. I think you're a good example of boxing and retirement. You obviously have coped with the challenges of retirement. I know you stay busy on the scene doing your bit of refereeing, and it's a pleasure to speak to you.
Listen, mate, thank you for that. Look, I've had ups and downs like we all have, but you just got to keep going forward, haven't you? You just got to keep marching forward. Life is very short. As you get older, you realise, the things that really matter.
Absolutely.
So look, thanks a lot for having me, mate, and know that I'll see you about on the scene sometime.
Absolutely, champ. I'll see you on the circuit. Thank you for giving me the time today, and have a good day the rest of your day.
And
Peace out.
Bye.